Hey everyone, Alpha Eagle here again. Welcome back to my channel. I pray you're all doing well, and may God bless you all. In this video, we will be reviewing Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim. But before we begin, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And yes, I know I'm late reviewing this movie, which is nothing new. I'm late reviewing everything. Also, before we begin, I'd like to say that I'm just a casual Lord of the Rings fan. I've never read any of the books. I have seen all the Peter Jackson movies, including the Hobbit trilogy, which I think is underrated, and I saw the animated movies, but I barely remember them. I haven't seen The Rings of Power because of all the bad reviews it's gotten. Also, as I said, I'm only a casual fan and didn't have much of an interest in it to begin with. I felt that I've already seen the story written by Tolkien, so why watch something that's mostly wasn't written by him? Simply being mostly written by someone else automatically makes it inferior, in my opinion, so I had no interest. Now, speaking of an adaptation which Tolkien had very little to do with, that finally brings us to the review. Now, since my channel is about politics, your first question might be, is it woke? Well, yes it is, but we'll talk about that later. The movie begins by introducing us to our main protagonist. Now that's the King Helm's daughter, Princess Hera, which brings me to my first problem with the movie. They make her a Mary Sue. She is the most attractive woman in the kingdom, she is the best rider of the horses, she is the best fighter, she's the best at everything. Now, my second problem is that I feel that there is way too much focus on just her. Now, when I think back to the other Lord of the Rings movies, while you can argue that Frodo and Bilbo are the main protagonists, the other movies seemed more like team movies. Now, the Fellowship was a team, and the dwarves in The Hobbit was a team. Now, this movie feels like all the focus is on Hela and Hela only. The spotlight isn't shared as much with the other characters. King Helm, who should have been the focus of this movie. He's a badass, but he's kind of a jerk. Now, we'll get to that later. Now, the king is having a meeting with all the different factions of the kingdom, I think. Anyway, one of the factions leaders, I forget his name, so I'm just going to call him the guy. Anyway, the guy suggests that the Princess Hera marry his son Wolf. Now, the king is suspicious of this offer, and he believes that after Wolf marries his daughter, that he will kill him and his sons to become king. So Helm declines, and he insults the guy by calling him fat. Anyway, the guy is offended by the king's joke and the decline of his offer, so he challenges the king to a fight. Princess Hela suggests that the king refuse to fight, but the king agrees to the fight anyway and suggests that they step outside. The fight ends pretty quickly, with the king accidentally killing the other guy. The guy's son Wolf blames the king for his father's death and attacks the king, so the king banishes Wolf from the kingdom. Sometime later, Hela and her male cousin, who seems to have a weird thing for her, and her female bodyguard are out away from the kingdom when they come across a dead body, and they figure out that he was a driver of an animal when the animal he was driving attacks him. It's one of those elephant-like creatures from Lord of the Rings. Now, I don't know what they're called. Again, I'm just a casual fan. Anyway, Hela distracts it and steers away from the others, and into a swamp where it is eaten by another creature. Now, this reminds me of the Phantom Menace, where Qui-Gon says, "There's always a bigger fish." While separated from the other two, Hela is then kidnapped by Wolf, who takes her away to his new fortress, where he explains to her that in his time banished, that he has risen an army, and just like a James Bond villain, he tells her his plan to attack Helm's kingdom. Luckily, she escapes with a little bit of help from her cousin and her female bodyguard. They return to the kingdom, and they warn Helm about Wolf's plan to attack. But the king is upset, and he blames the cousin for getting his daughter kidnapped, and banishes him as well. Now, this is why I call Helm kind of a jerk, because it's not the cousin's fault that the princess was kidnapped. Also, he helped bring her back unharmed, so I don't see why he would be banished. But, as we shall see, this ends up being a good thing. Decides to meet Wolf on the battlefield, and a big battle ensues. The princess learns of someone's plan to betray them. She kills the betrayer and tries to lead her people back to the keep. During the battle, the king's older son attacks one of those elephant creatures, but he gets killed. And the king himself and his younger son are also injured, and everyone tries to retreat back to the keep. The king's younger son is captured by Wolf. The king offers to barter himself for his younger son, since he knows that Wolf wants revenge on him most of all. Wolf explains to the king that he wants revenge on the entire kingdom, not just Helm, so he kills Helm's younger son right there. The king is injured. He retreats back to the keep to try to heal from his injuries. Meanwhile, Wolf begins to build a structure to get his soldiers over the wall of the keep. Some time goes by, and the king's people are struggling to survive because they are surrounded by Wolf's troops. Winter is beginning, and they are running out of supplies, and the king himself is trying to heal from his injuries. Meanwhile, Wolf is getting reports from his troops that they are being attacked by what they think is a wraith killing the troops. Wolf doesn't believe this, and he tells them to fight back. It turns out that the king was sneaking out at night through secret passages in the keep and killing Wolf's troops. One night, Hela finds the secret passages and goes out looking for her father. Hela runs into a group of trolls, I think. Again, I'm not sure. I'm just a casual fan. Anyway, Hela overheard them say that they were looking for some rings. They see her and they are about to attack her when the king surprises them all and takes them all out. Fortunately, Wolf's other troops find out about this and come after Hela and the king. So they go back to the keep and the king sacrifices himself to save Hela and his people. This is a badass, heroic move by the king, but it's also dumb since he didn't have to do that. He had time to also get behind the walls of the keep. The next day, Hela decides to get help from the eagles because what Lord of the Rings movie would be without help from the eagles? Anyway, she gives them her father's helmet and horn and tells them to bring help. Meanwhile, Wolf finishes his structure to get over the wall of the keep and attack the king's people. The princess, dressed in a bridal gown, challenges Wolf in a one-on-one combat, and the winner will win the kingdom. Wolf accepts, and of course, Hela wins. Now, I had trouble believing this since Wolf is much bigger and stronger than Hela. Anyway, since Hela won, she demands that Wolf retreats. Wolf, of course, refuses. Then his second-in-command says, "Hey, you agreed to the terms of the battle, and you lost, so you should fulfill your promise." Wolf then kills him and attacks anyways. All of a sudden, fortunately, the eagles return with Hela's cousin, who is wearing her father's helmet and blowing his horn. He leads his army into the battle. Then Hela kills Wolf during a battle. The morning comes, and we see that Hela and her cousin won the battle. Then we get a cameo from the wizard Saruman, who heard about the battle. With nearly every member of the royal family dead, Hela's cousin becomes king. Hela was offered the role of queen, but declined for whatever reason, and she rides off with her female bodyguard to tell Gandalf about the trolls who are looking for rings, and the movie ends there. So, overall, even when you take out the wokeness and remove the Lord of the Rings name, it's still just a mediocre medieval battle movie. And that's what the majority of the movie is. It feels just like an extended battle scene from one of the other movies. It doesn't feel like a full movie, it just feels like a battle scene. Now, to get back to the wokeness that I talked about at the beginning of this review, what makes this movie woke is that, as I heard from people who know more about the Lord of the Rings than me, is that the character of Hela didn't have a big role in the books, as she does in this movie. Now, she was so unimportant that Tolkien didn't even bother to name her. Now, that's very disrespectful to Tolkien. If he had wanted her to have a bigger part, he would have wrote it for her. Movie studio has to completely change a character and a story simply to have a female protagonist, that's when you know it's woke. And the fact that they made her a Mary Sue who's great at everything is also woke. Also, they put nearly the entire focus on her instead of sharing the spotlight with the other characters. The only other character that gets somewhat close to the amount of spotlight that she has is the king, and he doesn't really have that much. Hela who kills Wolf. It was still her who got help from the eagles. It was her who stopped the man who betrayed them. It was her who led her people back to the keep. It was her who defeated the elephant creature. It was her who learned about Wolf's plan to attack, and it will be her who warns Gandalf of the troll's plan to find the rings. That's what makes it woke. It doesn't even feel like a Lord of the Rings movie. All the other Lord of the Rings movies feel like grand epic adventures, and like I said, this movie just feels like an extended battle scene, and that's it. There aren't any mythological races like elves, dwarves, goblins, hobbits, orcs, walking trees, or wizards, other than the trolls, and that's it. There are just a handful of creatures like the elephant creatures, the eagles, and the creature in the swamp, and that's it. I will say that some of the action is cool, and it's surprisingly brutal for a PG-13 animated movie. There are limbs being dismembered, there are arrows getting shot through the neck, and there are some people getting stabbed with pitchforks. But Overall, I can't recommend this unless you're just hard up to see a mediocre extended medieval battle scene. So, that's about it for this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'm Alpha Eagle. God bless you for watching. God bless America. And I pray that Hollywood stops disrespecting the source material and gives us accurate adaptations instead.